4.3. Mr. Year out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave Year out with planning staff. This is Plan Unit Development 2019-14. It's a request to change the zoning on what was the Booth Elementary School on East Mount Vernon. We are between Edgemore and Woodlawn on the north side of Mount Vernon, a former elementary school that was sold a number of years ago to a church. It has subsequently been sold by the church to the current owner, which is Make ICT. It's a nonprofit outlined and discussed in your staff report, and I'm not going to try to explain what they do. They can do that better than I can. But essentially, from the condensed version is they operate as a nonprofit and provide training services for individuals that are interested in learning more about certain skills or trades or crafts or a number of things that go on. I'll let them talk about that. They currently have an operation on Douglas Street, and they've acquired this former elementary school with the intention of relocating the operation primarily to this site. They approached us, talked about the best way to zone for that. Plan unit development was the logical method to achieve that. As you will recall, over the last several years, we have dealt with plan unit development rezones on a number of old schools that, as the school district has downsized some of the older facilities and have been converted to other uses, that's the best tool to accommodate that. And we feel that's the case here as well. You can see on the aerial how the existing building sits on the site, and the Gypsum Creek drainage way is along the north and east side of the property, which is adding to a lot of the interest of what all has and challenges with this particular property. I want to go back to the platting area. You can see a lot of the plats that go around the property and the odd shape of the lots. There is the subject property is also was platted, is currently being replatted. And one of the things that we need to do is make sure that the final definition and descriptions of the legal description match based on what the new plat gets into. And you can see from the outline of the former actions on this property, not all the lines match based on, and those are some old records that have had to be cleaned up, because what we understood was there was, back apparently when it was with the school district, there was a separate document created to expand some of the drainage area along Gypsum Creek. Didn't match the original plat, was filed by a separate document, and it's just kind of floating out there. We're trying to get all that cleaned up. It will be addressed in the plat that's coming through probably in the next 30 days. You can see by the comp plan, and it's interesting because the future land use map, this property was identified as future commercial, surrounded by residential, but it was pulled out and identified when the plan was done for commercial use, which was kind of interesting. This is the site drawing that was submitted with the PUD. You can see the boundary that has been established for the parcel, and they're working to make sure that this description matches the new plat. We'll make sure before this goes forward that gets rectified and pinned down accurately. They shaded area in the footprint of the existing building. The reason these easements are shown, the replatting gets rid of those things. They were put in back before some of that was even done for the school. Why they weren't cleaned up before they built the school, got permits, don't know. That's no pun intended, that's water under the bridge. So we'll get all that cleaned up going forward. As we outlined in the staff report, there was requests within the language of the PUD that they were asking for that we felt were went beyond what we wanted to do. And so in our recommendation for approval, we're comfortable with the concept and the intent of what's trying to be done here. We think this will be a great use, and particularly, if you will, we're reestablishing an educational activity in a former elementary school, so that makes some sense. But we talked about in our recommendation that they comply with the parking requirements of the city, and they also address the landscaping requirements, and I think they want to talk about that. You can see from the aerial that the primary access comes off of Donlinger on the east side of the building, a couple of drives, but they just go into gravel areas that were used as parking. Apparently, there is no improvement of on-site for any kind of parking. There was an old semi-access coming in off of Mount Vernon, but that's not used at all, and it's not intended to be used, as we understand. You can see this is looking at the site of where the school is from Mount Vernon. In the foreground, we're looking north. This is the main building, and you remember it's an L-shaped building, but that's looking north. We're looking kind of northeast. This is the site in question. There's the intersection of Mount Vernon and Donlinger, that we have houses on the east side. That's sensitive. This is further north along Donlinger, and I'm looking kind of west at the site. This is the kind of the main entrance of the school up at the north end. And here in the background, you can see the area that's used for parking. That's across the street. I'm in the parking lot here, and this is Gypsum Creek. You can see how significant that is in the land area adjacent. It kind of is a park type setting. This is looking south along Donlinger. That's the flag pole and the for sale sign. Here's one of the accesses off Donlinger into
Dave, I'm gonna hurry you up, we're gonna lose a quorum, so.
Okay, we're recommending approval. The main changes I think they want to talk about are paving requirements and maybe some landscaping issues. So,
Questions for staff?
got any questions?
Seeing that, thank you. Agent or applicant?
My name is Fred Britton, 11955 Southwest 47th Terrace, Towanda, Kansas. I'm with the applicant. We agree with everything that staff says. We would like to request on the parking that we leave the parking as existing. You can see the two drives to the north are paved into a gravel lot. There's actually a concrete area for the ADA parking that goes into the main entrance already. It would be 3/4 of the purchase price to put the parking there, and so we'd like to see if that would remain. The language that we had put in the PUD said that if any improvements were to happen, any additions, that then we would kick into the paved parking requirements. So, any questions?
Questions for the applicant? Mr. Foster?
Two questions. Question one, it was mentioned there was a concern for the landscape requirement.
So if you were to leave the parking existing, the landscape requirements that are listed, there's an exception that says if the parking is not being upgraded, the landscape requirements remain. We would be okay to leave that. Like we said, if we ever do any sort of addition and then the parking requirements are kicked in, it would kick in landscape requirements too.
Second question is under item A of the usage conditions, it refers to the times of operation. Explain public facility hours. Does that mean folks coming to the facility that are not users?
Yes, so for example, we have what's called Maker Mondays. And so members would show everything that they've been learning. Let's say have a show and there's artwork out there. The public would come during those times, let's say late afternoon. I think those are at 5 at our current facility. They're usually an hour or two long, and people can come see what's being done.
I heard 7 to 9, so.
Okay, so yes, later in the afternoon, evening.
Any additional questions for the applicant, Mr. Green?
I've got some concerns about the quality of that parking lot that you've got there currently. I mean, the driveways look nice, but the parking lot, at least from the aerial that I'm looking at, doesn't look like it's in too great a shape.
Yeah, and I believe we've talked about going and re-graveling that to make it in better shape, because it is not, it's not in the larger area like it once was when the church was there. Some of that has grown over.
Additional questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the committee. Mr. McKay?
What? I'd make a motion we approve it, but Dale, how do we do this? Make the alteration in the motion from on the surfaces?
Just say that it would be approved with an all-weather surface, and that allows the gravel.
Okay. That's what
That's
I'm
your
saying.
motion? There's a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Ms. Miles seconds that motion. Additional discussion. Mr. Green?
With the, going back to the parking lot, I'm sorry, but how do you provide ADA spaces on a gravel lot?
Those have to be paved. The ADA can't be.
I think he said they already were.
Yeah, there is one.
Additional questions? We have a motion on the motion. All those in favor show the right hand or a hand. Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Next item, I believe, is 4.5, Zone 2019-00040.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I want you to know I had a interpretive dance prepared, but in light of needing to continue on, I will forego that. Can we see it after? No. Jim, can you help me out? I'm gonna keep going. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna stay on this map for most of the time. The property is located just east of Edgemore Drive. And in the past, in like 1976 and again in 1988, these single-family residences have been changing over to commercial. And at the time that these properties were being rezoned to neighborhood office and general, or neighborhood retail and general office, there was a covenant that was put on these properties so that the commercial development would not come down into this single-family residential area. So the application to rezone includes a new protective overlay which incorporates that language that was put in those earlier covenants, which we no longer use that type of instrument. So the other thing, and the applicant owner is here. Let me go to the site plan. This is the current property, and as you can see, there are two drives. It's a half circle drive, and then to the east of that is a single family residence, and it has fencing along the north and east, their east property lines. This is across the street looking east on Central. So most of that area is zoned limited commercial on the north side of Central. This is again looking directly across at that residential, and your property is to the west. Jim, I thought we got okay, I apologize. I thought there was a site plan that was included in there. That's my error. It is included, however, in your staff report. And one of the owner, there should be attached to your packet an email from the owner saying that the site plan doesn't show exactly, the concrete is extended more than what is shown on his existing site plan. So one of the things that we added, one of the conditions that we added to this protective overlay was to close the western drive access and only have one access into this property. And that as you can see, there's three properties that face Central that are single family. As those develop into commercial, which is what the covenants back from 1988 predicted, then we are requiring a cross-lot access because these two properties already have one access point onto Central. And in your staff report, the applicant requested that they be allowed to retain both those access points. So I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Kathy? Seeing none, thank you.
One point of clarification of the staff recommendation, we did not specify whether it was the east or west drive that needed to be closed. We left that up to the applicant and their design.
Thank you for that clarification. Agent or applicant,
Shall I leave this up here for you?
state your name and address for the record, and you have 10 minutes.
They do have the site
They
plan.
do, okay, very good. Ben Gardner, 150 North Market Street, Wichita, Kansas. Thank you, Kathy. I agree with everything that you've said. Originally, the site plan that we sent for review, and I don't know, do they have the updated site plan or do they have the original one?
I would have to check that. They have the same packet that you did, that I'm really clear with you.
You have the updated one, it looks like. The garage, which is on the northwest corner of the building, originally the site plan with which they used to make the recommendation to close both of the access, or one of the access points, did not show the concrete that is existing that goes all the way up to the garage, and the garage was not labeled. So I presume that they did not know that there was a garage on the west side. So if we close the west access point, then that would really probably make the garage unusable for a vehicle. And then, of course, the east access point, for the purpose of parking, it wouldn't quite make sense to close the east access point so that you wouldn't be able to access around the side like so many of those other houses that have been converted have done. They've added parking in the back. So that's the logic behind wanting to leave both of those access points up. Yeah. Thank you.
Questions for the agent, owner? Mr. Richardson.
This one works.
There we go. Okay, hold your breath. No, sorry. No, okay. It looks like that there's about, maybe 30 feet between the garage and the sidewalk. Would that not be adequate to pull around there and back into that garage or unload? I mean, do you park cars in that garage or is it for storage?
I have the site plan. I guess I can't speak to the exact measurement. If the way it is now, there are some measurements there, so there's not quite 20 actually, it looks like, from the front of the garage.
More than that.
If you were to draw a line where the landscaping is, and you were to draw a line across, then which would be where it would be closed.
There's got to be 25 to 30 feet there. You got 11 plus 5 plus the landscaping plus the ramp to the front porch, which is probably another 4 feet. So are you parking cars in the garage?
We would certainly like the ability for the garage to be used for that. Currently, it's not occupied, but we would like the garage to be usable. If we close this access point, then maybe only some very small cars with a tight turn radius would be able to use it.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Johnson?
I don't really see any problem with having two. The west one's not going to be used hardly at all. And it makes it kind of unusable without it. Especially if there's somebody parked in the handicap space, you couldn't get access to the parking garage, to the garage.
Any other questions for the speaker? Mr. Richardson?
Here we go. This one works. One of the compromises I've thought about here is we leave these two accesses here until such time as that building goes away, and it would have to be closed at that point. Would you be agreeable to that?
I don't see any problem with that.
Yeah, and because I think we're looking at the long-range considerations here when this might be redeveloped. So if we could have that as a condition, I think that would maybe be a compromise. So I would make that motion.
We're away, we got a ways to go yet. We haven't had public. Still got to ask. Okay, is there anybody from the audience want to speak on this issue? Seeing none? No rebuttal. Now we can have a motion. We went through the motion.
I would move to approve, subject to this, leaving both entrances open until such time as this building is removed.
Second.
We have a motion second by Mr. Johnson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. That's the last of those items. We have some non-public hearing items that will require votes. We need a quorum. I understand we're going to lose one or two, lose one, so we need at least 8 to stay. And we'll take item 5.1. We'll go, we got enough. Yeah.
What number does it say 5.1 is? On that sheet right there next to you? The red number, what? 127? Okay, excellent. Commissioner Scott Knable with the planning staff. The item 5.1 is a proposal to establish a business improvement district for the Douglas Design District. This was originally initiated by the City Council in August of 2018 when they appointed a committee to prepare the plan. You have a final version of that plan that was handed out at your spaces today. The statutory requirement is that the Planning Commission review that plan in conjunction with this plan advisor or plan, forget the term of it, but the committee that was appointed by the City Council that developed the plan is required to present it to the Planning Commission for your consideration. It actually does not say that you're required to approve it. It says that you're required to review and comment on it. We are in the recommended action asking that you approve it, but obviously if that's something more than what you're willing to do, you're hearing it and making comment on it is sufficient. Renee Duxler, the Executive Director of the Douglas Design District, is here, and she's got a brief presentation to explain what all of this is.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate having a little bit of your time this afternoon. I will try to move through this fairly swiftly and then have room for questions at the end, so hopefully you can understand exactly what we're trying to do here. And there we go. Okay. So just real briefly, the Douglas Design District was created in 2007 with the intention of creating a vibrant and thriving commercial district for the businesses on Douglas Avenue from Washington to Glendale. We've been an all-volunteer and voluntary membership-based nonprofit civic organization for 12 years now and have gone through a number of cycles of activity and inactivity as any all-volunteer nonprofit might. The mission of the Douglas Design District is revitalizing the East Douglas community, creating a feeling of vitality, commerce, and pride for the area residents and businesses. We will pursue and promote the corridor of creativity as a rewarding place to live, work, invest, and shop local. Currently, the district houses over 550 businesses in our overall blueprint or footprint, but 183 of those are businesses that are located on the street front from Washington to Glendale along Douglas Avenue. We lead the area in destination marketing and special events with Second Saturday promotions, the Lincoln Heights Farmers Market, Four Corners Fall Festival, Second Saturday Artisan Market, Women's Equality Day, Small Business Saturday, First Friday, and collaboration with Open Streets ICT with the city. We do have a website as well as social media, a number of followers through the years, and a 12,000 plus mailing list, email marketing list. Together, we've built this district, attraction of new business and increase in property values, a reduction of vacant properties and blight. Visually, if you remember what that corridor looked like 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, you can see exactly what has happened along that corridor. We've had a facilitation of public art and other beautification efforts on the Douglas Street front. We've installed over 80 murals now with this last installation of murals along that corridor. Our advocacy has led to sheltered bus stops, extended Q line routes. Now the Q line does run actually all the way to Edgemore at this point along Douglas, bike share, scooters, and enhanced infrastructure. We do have a creation of a monthly podcast for further reach and content of district news and engagement. And then 2 years ago, we received an $84,500 grant from the Knight Foundation Fund through the Community Foundation specifically for this capacity building effort with implementing a business improvement district. Why a business improvement district? So funds collected directly benefit those who are paying. The method of financing improvements through bids is well tested and respected. There's over 1,000 bids actually nationwide. One of the most famous ones is Times Square in New York City, but there's a number of bids even in Kansas and throughout the Midwest as well. The bids assessment provides an annual funding amount which is predictable, stable, and can be anticipated for budget and program planning purposes. And the assessment tends to foster long-range planning and program development due to the stability of the funding source. Over time, the bids tend to leverage greater amounts of both public and private improvements within a business district. The bid enables the business community to spend most valuable volunteer and staff time implementing projects, programs, and actions to enhance the district instead of the need to raise funds or to finance those activities. It also increases accountability, transparency, and a more democratic process of how funding gets spent. So as Scott mentioned, in August of 2018, we had a district planning committee and was chartered by the mayor and the city council, and you can see there who those committee members were. When we first started out, we were looking at the initial footprint of the entire district, and we have since moved into the street front properties, and so moving forward, you'll see in your packet the advisory board we're recommending is all street front business owners. But you'll also notice on this list, both council members Claycomb and Johnson were involved in this process and supportive of this initiative. The bid assessment proposal itself includes all businesses on street front property on Douglas from Washington to Glendale. It does not include government or religious institutions, nonprofit organizations, single-family residences, or businesses located within a single-family residence, i.e. not zoned for a business. For our purposes, it also does not include multifamily residential property of 2 units or less. Also for our purposes, and this is just our own language within the proposal, is that multifamily residential property of 3 to 9 units would be assessed at 50% of the assessment rate, and you'll see that fee structure. It's also in your packet here in a little bit. And then the commercial, what we're categorizing as commercial multifamily residential of 10 units or more would be assessed at the full rate, and that's per the square footage. The bid fee assessment is in exchange for DDD membership, and so it's not in addition to. Businesses not included on Douglas Street, but still in the footprint, would pay voluntary membership dues under the same fee structure and receive member benefits. This is the street front there from Washington to Glendale, and then I just added the blue triangles are retail and the orange ones are non-retail, but we've got 183 businesses. And then those triangles represent our actual current paying members into the Douglas Design District. And so just helping people kind of visually see why it goes that far of a stretch, because we have had and invested membership in that stretch of land for a very long time. That big, this big chunk right here is College Hill, and so that's why you don't see a lot in there. But all the way from Glendale to Washington, we do have a lot of involvement and investment. So here's the fee structure itself. Again, this committee was looking at bids all over the Midwest and then especially here in Kansas, and we decided we just wanted to keep it very simple and equitable. And so we went with square footage of the business, and so that would be the fee accordingly then across the line, whatever square foot range they fall in, they would pay that annual assessment fee. This also is cumulative, so if somebody owns multiple businesses in the district, they would be capped out at that $550. Currently, the Douglas Design District receives $18K in voluntary membership dues. A remainder of our current $50K operating budget comes from executive committee dues, grant writing, and fundraising. What we're expecting to generate with the bid levy is $50K, so doubling our current abilities with the voluntary membership. And then being able to add $35K with current grant writing and fundraising capabilities, and then that continued voluntary membership for an operating budget of $85K. And then the committee's recommendation was of hiring a staff person to ensure communication, consistency, and accountability. This was definitely, again, with the research and speaking with other bids who really emphasized the importance of staff in something like this. The other thing that I'll just add real quick before answering your questions is that this is very similar to what downtown Wichita has in place, except for they have a different funding model at their discretion under Kansas statute. We are not able to use SMID, which asks the property owners to pay in, and so this is businesses paying in lieu of a business being on the property, it being an open property, then the property owners would pay that annual assessment.
I have a question.
Any questions for Mr. Dexler?
Yeah. So is this voluntary or mandatory?
Oh, I was going to say it's a mandatory assessment.
The city council approves the business improvement district, the bid assessment would be a mandatory fee and they would pay it to the city. And then the city, the proposal is that the city would then contract with the Douglas Design District, and the Douglas Design District would provide the services on a contractual basis.
Finance plan's got a chance to look at this. That was kind of one of my concerns also, but one of them was that the fees are really reasonable. They're not something that's going to hurt a lot of businesses from that standpoint. And there seemed to be a lot of buy-in from a large majority of the businesses that are there. They've already been doing it. So that alleviated a lot of my fears.
Scott, I have a question. If you choose not to pay your dues, so then what happens if it's mandatory?
If you do not pay your due, you are failing to pay an invoice from the city of Wichita, and it'll be turned over to the collections.
Mr. Green.
Yeah, the concern that I had with this was that the 550 odd business, not that they're odd businesses, but the 550 businesses don't really have a say one way or the other if they're going to be in favor of this or not. Their council will decide, and then if they want to, if those businesses really don't want to be a participant, then they're going to be fined, for not paying a mandatory fee that they really had no say in whether or not they were wanting to do that.
Sure. And just point of clarification, it's actually 183 businesses that are just affected by the bid boundaries. We do have 550 in the overall footprint. It's 183. And there is, so when this goes before City Council, if City Council sets public hearing, they will vote on that. And then there is a 45-day protest period, and it's written in Kansas statute this way. And so that's the way we're doing it. But that 45-day period, they would have the option to petition, and if 50% plus one of those businesses petition against it, then it gets killed. But that, unfortunately, that's the statute. We're not, we're kind of obligated to that structure.
So are you basically just putting assessments on the people that are on Douglas
Yes.
only? So if you have a store frontage, you're going to have to pay. If you don't have a store frontage, then
You could voluntarily pay and continue to be a part of the district. But yeah, it's the bid itself would just be those storefront properties on Douglas from Washington to Glendale.
Ms. Miles?
Renee, I have a couple of concerns.
Sure.
One is, so you talk about 183 businesses, but currently you only have the buy-in of 56 that are willing
Sure.
to be members.
Mhm.
And the other concern that I have is the statement down here that says, in the instance that a property is vacant, the property owner shall be assessed and shall pay the same fee as a business in that space would.
Right.
So that's concerning to me as well.
Okay, sure. So I will answer the first one. Some of the reasons, so our current annual dues, the voluntary dues are $400 annually. So I do believe there's a great deal of businesses that under this fee structure, a more reasonable fee structure, would willingly pay and would like to pay because it's more equitable to the space of their business. And then the second concern, sorry, what was the second question?
The second question.
Oh,
had
the
to do
property
with
owners, yes.
The property being vacant.
So one of the things that we're talking to the property owners about is that we've never had an ability to hold a database of vacant and open properties in the district. That's something that Downtown Wichita does. That's something that a lot of the other bids do on their websites, is they have a database and you can go directly to the website and click on a link and it says vacant properties and you can look and see very easily. And I say this because one of the largest volume of calls that I get is what properties are available in the Douglas Design District. And I don't have anywhere to send them to just be able to get a real quick look at that. So that's something that we would do for our property owners, is have that on the website so that we'd be helping them with those vacant properties.
Mr. Richardson?
This may be a legal question. So if the property's vacant, this is a charge to the homeowner. Does it become a lien on that homeowner's property if it's not paid?
No, this is not a taxable assessment. This is a fee that is charged by the city. And in terms of homeowners, the single-family duplex are exempt from the fee. There is no fee.
So is there a way to exempt vacant properties if the city decided to do so?
The structure could be set up to where vacant properties don't pay. The assessment is done once a year, and it's, so it's a point in time as to whether the property is occupied or not. But there is an ability for the structure to be set up to where the vacant property doesn't pay a fee, pays a reduced fee. It's flexible in that regard.
What's the mechanism for raising the fee?
The fee itself is established on an annual basis by the city council through the budget process. There is an advisory committee that the city council appoints that by May 15th of each year submits a budget proposal and work plan to the city council that would recommend the fee for the following year.
From terms of our options, we can recommend approval, recommend disapproval, or take no action. Is that a fair assessment?
That's correct. You can do any of those three things.
Mr. Blick?
Question I might have for legal. Say if there's a sunset or they stop providing services or whatever, does this pay mandatory? Does this just go on for infinity, or does it stop if the organization stops, if they stop providing?
The fee is established on an annual basis, and the city council can stop it once a year. Additionally, 50% of the business owners within the district can file a petition on an annual basis each year after the city council establishes the budget and adopts the ordinance that sets the fee for the next year. Within 45 days, if they submit a petition, 50% of them do, then the council has to rescind that ordinance and the bid goes away.
Can we take public comment?
Please state your name and address for the record.
Justin Strelo, Oxdale Management, 8111 East 32nd Street, North, Suite 101. I'm sorry, Commissioners, just have a couple quick questions. I was not planning on speaking on this item. Generally, this is something that comes through my office because I represent a lot of our LLCs through zoning and planning. You all have seen me here multiple times. This is the first I've heard of this. And one question I do have is, while we're in full support of trying to grow Douglas and all our community and all our business and beautification, is how is this affected by the city's TIF program and district that they've established down there? With the TIF and the baseball stadium that's established in this area that's being proposed already being in the TIF district, a lot of small businesses will be expected that property taxes will increase. And then when they are tenants or they're landowners, that will increase their overall cost. If this is a mandatory, it seems to be a mandatory cost that will also go into the overhead? Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. I was trying to read through the notes here and I wanted to know how far it was going.
It goes to Washington.
Perfect. Okay. So it goes from where to?
So Washington and then all the way east to Glendale, which is just a block east of all of them.
Thank you. My question has been answered.
People at home won't know what that was all about, but basically the question was where it went, and it goes from Washington to Glendale and that. Okay. Any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion, we make a recommendation that the city council approve.
There's a motion to recommend approval. Is there a second? There's a second. Any further discussion? No, Mr. Richardson. All those in favor signify by the raised hand. Ms. Gross will abstain. Those opposed? 2 opposed. Ms. Miles and Mr. Green. Motion passes. We have one more item on our agenda, conformity of project plan area 3.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Matt Williams, Associate Planner. Today I'm here to talk about the conformity of Project Plan Area 3 for the Union Station Redevelopment District with the Wichita-Sedgwick County Comprehensive Plan. I'm going to let the presenter give a little more information about what is in the project plan. But the Project Plan Area 3 includes the renovation and expansion of 27,000 square feet of the existing ice house building and 13,000 square feet of a 3-story addition to that building. The TIF money is proposed for private and public improvements that will consist of improvements to the ice house building, as well as site improvements, including planters, sidewalks, pavement, irrigation, landscaping, site lighting, and street furniture amenities. The Project Plan Area 3 falls within, is located at Union Station, and that falls within the Downtown Master Plan, which has been adopted as part of our comprehensive plan. Specifically, the project plan falls in the Old Town South District, one of 15 unique districts in the Project Downtown Plan. The Project Plan Area 3 specifically accomplishes certain elements of the key visions for that district, as including reviving Union Station, the adjacent sites, and Douglas Avenue with office, hotels, and/or other uses. It's the opinion of staff that the Project Plan Area 3, dated November 21st, 2019, is substantially consistent with the Wichita-Sedgwick County Comprehensive Plan, and I'll let him give you a presentation on
it. Good afternoon, Mark Elder with the City of Wichita's Office of Economic Development, for the record. This is the third phase of the Union Station redevelopment. Phases 1 and 2 are complete or nearly complete, and those have also gone through the same process for the findings of conformity. The district was originally established in 2014, and it encompasses about 10 acres. As stated, it does include the redevelopment of Union Station, and this is the third phase of that. Part of this, the ice house, which is in this phase 3 being discussed today, was included earlier this year in October to include this, as the developer has been able to acquire additional land surrounding their original development. They have included that in order to redevelop that in the same status and improvements that they've done in the original phases. So you can see here, this is the district. The hashed lines along Rock Island are the ice house property that's the phase 3 being discussed today. And then you can see the first phase was along Douglas, and the second phase was that middle one just south of Douglas. So with this, and Matt addressed a little bit of it, this area is approximately about a half acre, and it does include the redevelopment of the ice house building. It includes both the rehab of about 27,000 square feet as well as a new 13,000 square foot addition on that. The project will include new sidewalk, streets, amenities, and landscaping, and the TIF eligible improvements are strictly, on the horizontal. So they're just improvements to land, none in the building. So they stay consistent with that. There will also be improvements done in this area for improving Rock Island and some of the infrastructure. And just some renderings of the building as well as the improvements you can see along there. And with that, though, this is, I stand for any questions.
Any questions for Mark? Mr. Foster?
How have the previous two areas been performing?
They've been, are you asking as far as the TIF or as far as the developer's improvements? Because the developer has been meeting their timeframes, and I believe the first phase is fairly occupied, and there's a representative that could address a little bit more closely on how far they've come on those accomplishments.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Justin Strelo, Occidental Management, here representing Ice House LLC and Union Station LLC. Project Plan 1 included the renovation of the Grand and Patrick hotels, and then also some of the amenities that were out in front of the traditional Union Station terminal building. We also added some kiosks that were out there. At this point, we are 97, I think it's between 95 and 100. It's just short of 100% occupied in those spaces. Secondly, as far as Project Plan 2, we are wrapping up, anticipating turning in our documents for substantial completion to the city here within the next 30 days. Since that time in Project Plan 2, we did a full renovation of the terminal and brought in, right now, we're about 660 new jobs to the community. And we are under contract for the remaining, or contract negotiations and lease negotiations for the remaining 30,000 square feet from the back terminal. All of that goes to help pay it back and increase taxes and also pay back the TIF. As far as TIF-related aspects, we've met 100% of our obligation, and so I'm projecting to pay off early. The ice house itself, you can tell by the renderings, I want to make it very clear to Planning Commission that nothing that is in the building is TIF eligible. That's not what's debate. The only thing that TIF allows is for the payment for the landscaping, streetscaping, and exterior amenities that are publicly available and that are made public by public access easements. And so one thing that when we started this in 2014, we approached a system that's called pay-as-you-go TIF. It wasn't something that was leveraged or used here in Wichita, but what quite frankly it means is traditionally the city would have to go bond this work out as if they did down in the Warren and have to carry those holding costs. That's not what we did. This is strictly pay-as-you-go, where we take all the risk, we take all the bonding, or all the insurance, all the construction costs, all the financial costs, we take 100% of the risk, and if we don't meet our obligation, we don't get paid back. And so that was trying to be fair to the community. We understand that there's sometimes some apprehension to this, but I believe, as Mark can state, we've met 100% of our obligations and continue to do that. And we have multiple phases planning, and we continue to grow with the city of Wichita, bring businesses to this community and allow it to thrive. Thank you.
Mr. Black?
I have a question for you. So is phase 3, is that also part of the parking garage that you're going to be building too?
No, sir. With the addition of phase 3 and the timing thereof, phase 3 and phase 4 were amended. In phase 2, we contemplated phase 3 being on the south end of what was phase 2, between the parking garage, proposed parking garage, and what phase 2 buildings were. With the acquisition of the ice house, we transferred what was to be the allocated building square footage we were going to do that on the ice house property, and phase 4 is anticipated solely to be the parking garage. Okay. And so if you look at the return analysis on that and what's part of our plan, that is what you will see.
Okay, yeah, because when I was looking at the map, the site plan over here, it shows phase 3 as the parking garage, so that's why I was kind of confused.
Oh, might have been a normal.
Right. That was due to when we had the 3 phases, so it just shifted to the parking garage became phase 4 and ice house became phase 3 when we added that extra phase.
Sounds great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Further questions? Looks like recommended actions that the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission pass a resolution finding the proposed project plan area 3 for the Union Station redevelopment dated November 21st, 2019 to be substantially consistent with the adopted Wichita-Sedgwick County Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
That was a motion, I guess. Yeah. Further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? Passes unanimous. Any other business that I'm not aware of?